Hello, everybody. Hello, this is Michael Watson, and my co-host Karen Hand is with me tonight. Hi, Karen.
All of you. Good to see you, Michael.
And we are here for yet another session of the IACT IMDHA Presenters Series in anticipation for the wonderful HypnoExpo that's coming up in Daytona Beach, March 17th through the 19th, 2019. And then there are pre-conference and post-conference programs before and after. Today we're going to be talking with Sherry Gilbert and hopefully Attila Kun, who will be presenting a post-conference, right?
I'm free. I don't know about Attila.
Okay. Well, you're probably the same, and I'll double check that before we introduce him. So you're just the day before, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes, she's Thursday.
All right. So again, pardon. So we're gathered together. You need to know that while you're watching this program, if you are a member of IACT or IMDHA, you can get CEUs for being on this call. You just log into the website of whichever organization you're a member of. And when you log in with your user ID, there's a little box on the page that you access where you can enter CEUs. Just tell them that you visited the virtual chapter, that you spent an hour and a half with us, and you want it back. You deserve full credit. And by the way, if you watch the replay, which will be posted tomorrow somewhere around noon, I bet you can even get 3 hours worth of credit for the same call. And I'm sure that Sherry is going to say a number of things that you will just shake your head and say, what did she say? And you'll have to run back and look at the recording again tomorrow. So it's lovely to have that. It will be posted on the IACT IMDHA forum, the Mind Matters forum. If you're a member, you can log into that. It will also be posted on the virtual chapter Facebook group. And the virtual chapter also has a YouTube channel. And so you can find it there. What am I forgetting, Karen?
CEUs. Did you pass?
Yeah. I was just saying, we were just saying that. So you log onto the website and you can collect your CEUs. And I wanted to let you know you can open up the chat box down at the bottom of the screen, approximately underneath my chin. You will find a menu pop up, and there's access to a chat box there. If you open up the chat box, that just may come in handy later on when we have questions and things like that, or if there's something that we want to put up, like a web address or anything of that nature. So that could be useful.
But if you do have questions along the way, by all means, put them in the chat room and we'll get to them as quickly as possible.
Okay. And in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, if you are lucky, you just might see that you have the option of selecting between gallery and active speaker mode. The active speaker shows the main picture on your screen will be the person that's speaking at the time. The gallery mode lets you look at everybody all at once in a little Brady Bunch format. And that's really lovely. I find that's really useful for speakers, by the way, because you can see and engage responses of people, in the audience as they're talking to you. So however you like, your configurations will not affect what happens on the recording, and the recording will simply be the active speaker. So that's all we need to say, I think. I've run that down in 90 seconds or so.
You did a great job.
All right. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you Sherry Gilbert. Sherry has been a hypnotherapist since 2001. I've sure known you for a long time, Sherry, I think. She is a faculty member for the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. She has a passion for teaching and mentoring. She is proud to have received the 2016 Hypnotist of the Year Award from IACT, and well-deserved there. And she is our guest tonight, and she's going to be talking about her program, Smoking Cessation for Groups, which will be on March 10th. Yeah, that's right. March 10th is today's date. Certainly not when you're going to do it. I've got my calendar all wrong. May 16th. Is it a one day? Good.
One day.
One day. May 16th is the day right before the conference weekend. And so welcome, Sherry. We're really glad to have you with us tonight.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
All right. So, gosh, smoking is one of those things, isn't it? When I think of hypnosis and what it is that hypnotists do, the four biggies, we just did the Galaxy of the Stars, where we did the four biggies. And they were smoking, weight loss, pain management, and stress and anxiety. So here we are with one of the four biggies right here. And you're going to be offering this as a one-day program before the conference, so people can add this work to their practice if they're not doing it already. So what an important thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think particularly working with groups, because it's a great way to, particularly if you're newer, into practice and you're wanting to build your practice, it's a great way to add to your income. It's a great way to help a lot of people at one time. And sometimes people are just more comfortable coming in groups. But I find that I mentor a lot of new hypnotherapists, and I find that group work feels daunting to them. So I put this program together a number of years ago to kind of, it's just step by step. It's not just the scripts, it's what do you do for an icebreaker? What do you do for homework assignments for them? What kind of giveaways might you want to do? So it's just literally everything from A to Z, so that when you walk out of there, you're good to go.
Sherry, do people still smoke?
You know, they do. And I actually went out and looked for the most recent statistics not too long ago, because I teach, as Michael mentioned, with the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. And this came up in a class. I went out to look and see what the most recent statistics were. And in 2017, they still showed 34.3 million adults. That's adults, not teens. But 34.3 million adults in the United States alone still smoke. I couldn't find the statistics worldwide, so I don't know what that number is. And what I found that was really shocking to me is that it is still causing 480,000 deaths every single year. 480,000 people dying from smoking, whether it's cigarettes or vaping or one of those things. And that is still about 1 in 5 deaths is related in some way to smoking. I lost my mother to smoking. So, you know, we know now how dangerous it is, and yet so many people are still doing it because they don't know how to stop. And that's something that we can do that really helps out not just the people that are smoking, but all their family members that are inhaling all that secondhand smoke.
Isn't that great? By the way, I was going to talk to you about vaping, and I want to save that for a little bit later, because that sure is a huge thing now. But you know, I smoked for 1,000,000 years. Now I just smolder. But
That's fabulous. I'm going to steal that.
but I just wanted to mention, I was in Tampa, or well, the Tampa area in Oldsmar yesterday for the Hypnosis Education Association. It has like a one-day meeting in March every year, and Robert Otto was our guest speaker. And he sort of talked about his days. For people from IACT and IMDHA who don't know this, Robert started out doing smoking and weight loss groups, and he was one of those guys that went from one hotel to the next hotel to the next hotel to the next hotel, man, and like a whirlwind, and created a whole career based off of just doing that. So so one of the things that you mentioned, and this is what I'm coming back to, is you were talking about groups, so that's the kind of thing. But are you talking about traveling around groups, or are you talking about?
No, I mean, you could certainly adapt this to that if you wanted, but I'm talking more the 6 people, 12 people, 20 people type of groups that maybe you go into a corporation and offer groups in the corporation, or you have them come to your location. Maybe you're working with families. Maybe you just put a group together all on your own. But I get often asked, way in the beginning of my career, I did a lot of corporate work, and I still get asked by a lot of corporations because they're really looking for ways to reduce their healthcare costs. So I get asked by a lot of corporations, even though I don't actively promote this anymore, I still get probably once a month a request to come in and do a smoking cessation group. And I won't allow the company to pay the whole amount. I'll let them pay up to 50% of it, because people value that which they pay for. They need to pay for it to make sure that they're committed to doing it. But the idea of having this small group, whether it's at work or family or friends, creates that nice feeling of having a support group and a little bit of accountability. And we all know we do better with accountability.
Well, Sherry, it's also, especially for new hypnotists, a lot of brand new hypnotists are looking for ways to build their business, and they think about doing a Groupon offer. And Groupon can be a real big nightmare if you offer really cut rate services and then bring in, I have 400 people you have to service for however many times. It's a nightmare. However,
please don't do that.
But wait. But one successful way to tackle that Groupon thing is to offer a group rate and do a Groupon group offer. And so you're still talking to those people, but now you have to know how to do groups.
Yes.
So I'm thinking this is just a great offering, especially for new hypnotists who might consider using it to drive some traffic to their business, to make a name for themselves, but they got to know how to do those groups first, because it can bring up a lot of people to your group.
And that is one way to promote doing groups, but I'm going to give them another tip that I think is more effective. I'm a member of a networking organization called BNI, Business Networking International, and they can go and visit any chapter that does not have a hypnotherapist in that group, take rack cards, and promote their business. And when they get busy enough that they can afford to join, then join. I will tell you that it keeps me so busy. I had to hire somebody this year. I had to hire another hypnotherapist because they keep me so busy. And you don't have, you may want to join at some point, but you can go visit any chapter up to twice a year that doesn't have a seated hypnotherapist. And I will tell you, I'm one of 2 hypnotherapists in the entire Phoenix area that belong. So if I had the time, I could go visit another 50, 55 chapters. And the only other hypnotherapist that belongs is my employee, and I put her in there. And she's been in for a month and is already getting really busy because of it. So there's so many ways. And if someone's having trouble getting their practice up and running and they want some suggestions for building it, they're welcome to reach out to me, because there's just so many great ways to do it. And like you said, Groupon for groups can be a good choice, but please don't do it any other way.
Right. Completely agreed. I don't know. I wouldn't want to do it with groups either. I think it's a nightmare proposition, but a lot of people are sold on the idea, and that's an effective way of using that.
Mm-hmm.
But here, Sherry, we've already talked about 2, BNI and Groupon, ways where groups might really be effective in the practice. So
yes.
Does one really need to add some kind of group smoking program or group program to their practice?
I think it's a really good thing to do, because Donald, I'll respond to that in a minute, but I think it's a great idea to do, because they have this built-in support group. So if someone reaches out to me and they're not already a client and they're looking specifically just for smoking cessation, the first thing I ask them is, do you have friends or family members or coworkers that would want to get free of cigarettes with you as well? Because if you do, let's do it all together, because it makes so much more sense to do it that way. It's less expense to the person because they're paying a group rate. Frankly, it's more money per hour for me and for the hypnotherapist.
Sure.
And it creates this camaraderie. And statistically, if you want to achieve a goal, telling other people and having some form of accountability, it increases by something like, don't quote me on this statistic, but the last article I read about it was something like 70%. It increases the chances of successfully reaching your goal. And we create all of that in this group. And now you have not just one person walking around telling everybody they know how fantastic you were, but you have 6 or 8 or 12 or 20 people walking around telling people how fantastic you are. And that's the best marketing you're ever going to get.
Do you also see individuals? You see people?
I do, yeah. Primarily my practice is individuals, except for I do groups for smoking cessation, and I do groups for fear of flying. If I've been working with a client on other issues and they now are ready to stop smoking, a lot of times I'll just do that with them privately, just 1 or 2, because we've already worked through so many things that the stop smoking can be a lot easier than it might have been otherwise, because we've already cleared out a lot of those other layers. And so in those cases, I may still give them the option if I feel like they would like to do that. But with smoking, it's just, my opinion is it's so much more fun and easy to do with a group.
And is it significantly different in the plan that you use or what you do with an individual and a group?
The scripts and the techniques that I use are fairly similar, except that in a private group, I'm going to do more interactive techniques like parts therapy or regression or inner child work, whereas you can't really do that quite as effectively in a group setting. So sometimes I will encourage them to do one private session if I feel like there's some work like that that needs to be done. But in a group setting, you actually need to be able to manage the groups. So I do more interactive pieces where they're going to work together. I do icebreakers, kind of make it fun. It's a little bit longer so we can include that time in for each session. I do little giveaways for them that have my logo on it. So they're walking around with things with my logo and, you know, showing it to people and sharing it with people. So it's a great marketing tool to do that.
And I heard you say homework. So
Yes.
is that inherently to me, I'm just saying to me, means multiple sessions. Is that true? Because you want to.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. My groups are 6 group sessions, and I tell them up front that at a certain point they may want to do 1 or 2 individual sessions with me as well.
On top of the 6.
On
not
top
in
of the
place
6.
Of the 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Some people just need the 6, but I want to make sure that they understand that that individual session is available for them, because as we all know, sometimes as you're getting rid of one thing, other things start popping up, and that may be stuff they don't want to talk about in the group. And so that way they know that they can work with me privately, individually on those things as well.
Well, when you're working with individuals, it's pretty easy to be flexible and go with the flow and listen to your client, maneuver and do this instead of that, or change things around. Not quite so easy to do that with a group, right? There is kind of a protocol that you would follow. Yes. So it's a step-by-step. This is your first session. This is your second session, etc.
Yeah. And I'm not really a big fan of protocol, but with groups, you kind of have to do that. You have to follow step by step. But definitely you'll be hearing and listening and able to interject some extra pieces if appropriate for the group at large. Or if you hear something that says, that's something we should be working on individually, then you can reach out to that person between the sessions.
So I wonder if I can steal a little tip from you about groups while we're here right now. Sometimes in a group, you know, typically, I like to call it the goose effect. You get somebody who speaks up, and then somebody else speaks up, and then the whole, you know, they all start talking. And that's okay if everybody's in agreement and they're all going along and they're talking about their success. And then sometimes in the group, you're going to have the naysayer.
Yes.
What do you do about the heckler or the naysayer in order to continue to hold control of your group?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because you do have to take control of that, and it really is about knowing that you're in charge. And if someone's going down a road that I would prefer they not go down, I'm just very comfortable interrupting and just saying, you know, that either saying that's something you and I can work on outside of the group, but for the interest of time we need to keep going, or I'll turn it around to the other people in the group and say, so I know that some of you have overcome that already. Tell me what you've done to overcome that. And so now we've switched back to something positive. And bottom line, it just really comes down to being willing to be in charge, interrupting. And
that was such a cool tip, because you just enlisted an army of support.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to join your side to start doing the sales pitch, or the reinforcement, or the motivation, as the case may be.
You know, I tend to think of myself in those situations where I'm leading a group, because I do a lot of workshops and teaching. I kind of see myself in the teacher role rather than in the hypnotherapist role. And thinking that way makes it very easy, because that's what you have to do in a classroom is turn things around and just interrupt and take back control of it. And who has a great suggestion for Matt? He's struggling with this. Who's got a great suggestion for that? And not letting them go on and on and on and on and bring everybody down.
Yeah, that's a very cool way to take control of that. I like that a lot. Do they sign up for these 6 sessions ahead of time?
They sign up and pay in advance.
And what happens if somebody misses a week?
If they miss 1 week, they can make that up in another group, or they can pay a small fee and make that up privately.
But they're not kicked out of the group. They're not voted off.
No. Stuff happens.
If they come once or twice and they never come back, do they ever get a refund?
No.
They forfeit.
Yeah. Well, and that's clearly put up front. My business practice, my business model is there's never a reason to give a refund. And I think that that's very important for a lot of hypnotic reasons, is that of course you're going to come, and of course you're going to be successful. If I have a refund policy for these things, it plants the seed that it's okay if that happens. It's okay that you don't come back. It's okay that you miss. It's okay that you don't have success. And none of those things are okay with me.
Right. Well, and it's a great way of putting some of the onus on them.
Yes.
I mean, they've got to do their part.
Yes.
There is no change without change.
Exactly. Well, we talk about in the very first class, what does it take to create change? It takes 3 things to create change. It takes awareness. So I assume they all have awareness because they showed up and paid to be there. And then it takes motivation. And the motivation is part of what we have to create in that first session. And then it takes consistency over time. And that's why you need it to be a longer group of sessions, because we need that consistency over time. The consistency of meeting with their support team, their consistency of showing up for the sessions, their consistency of doing the homework that I've assigned to them. And that's critical. It's critical whether we're working with smoking cessation, or anxiety. They've got to do that consistency over time. I can tell them what to do. I can help them with it while they're in session, but they've got to follow through and do their part.
Give me an example of homework.
Okay, so one of the things that I do is I want to address their stress levels, because that's usually one of the biggest triggers people have. So I teach them how to do diaphragmatic breathing, and that they're to do that diaphragmatic breathing 2 to 3 times every hour. While they're sitting there in the room, I have them download. They can go out to the App Store and put in free hourly chime and download any one of them that pops up, whatever picture they happen to like the best, and then program it so that it chimes every hour during their normal waking hours. And every time they hear that,
That's an odd chime, Sherry.
but I was talking about chimes, so how perfect. It just kind of blew my mind a little bit.
I know, it came from someplace.
that actually, by the way, was Attila's microphone.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Hi, Attila.
he was chiming in. So
Yes, I appreciate the support. That was fantastic.
I'm sorry, Sherry.
That's right. So what we're looking to do with the breathing is to reset how quickly they go into fight or flight. And so we're resetting that autonomic nervous system response. And so that's super easy homework that they have to do. And I also teach them some positive neuroplasticity techniques for when the thought comes into their head of, oh, I would usually go have a cigarette now, or I think I'd like to have a cigarette now, so that they've got some actual tools to use so that they can change what's going on in their brain. So the homework is very simple and really easy to do, but it's important that they do. So I spend some time in the first session explaining it, going over it, making sure that everybody understands it, and then in the second session, checking in to make sure that they've followed up.
And I'm guessing that they're sharing and doing all of that kind of stuff. Now, you get a lot of group involvement.
Yes.
How long are these sessions?
I do two, depending on the size of the group, I'll do 2 hours. If it's a very big group, 2.5 hours.
Okay, cool. That's pretty manageable.
Yeah. The bigger the group, the more time you want for the camaraderie building to happen, because I find that that's one of the most important reasons to do a group.
Oh, yeah, because they do support each other. It's, you know, and they're accountable. They hold themselves accountable.
Yes. Yeah. And that group accountability is critical.
Do you, Michael, did I interrupt you?
No. I think I set my coffee cup down and it triggered my microphone. But I did have a question I want to ask, if it's okay. Are you? Am I derailing you?
We have been having quite a good time, but yes, absolutely. If you have a question, I think we can make time for you.
Great. Well, I'm just thanks. That's very nice of you. I appreciate that. What I'm wondering about is first of all, Sherry, I've got to thank you already. I mean, like way in advance, because you're giving us a lot, you know. I can't imagine you're going to spend a whole day, and you will have already given away all your secrets right here.
Oh gosh, there's so many more secrets.
But one of the things that seems to be kind of controversial among hypnotists, I think, and maybe sometimes because of how they understand it or think about it, I don't know if I don't know anything about the details of your approach, and I'm just curious: do you use aversion? Is it a more positive-oriented approach, or does it balance those things, or how does that work?
I don't use aversion at all, and I recognize that some people like that approach and have had success with it. It just doesn't fit who I am, how I like to work, so I don't use any aversion. The tip I was actually wanting to give away tonight, so I'll just go there now, is one of the big things that I do that I think is really very important is I recognize that they actually have a relationship with the cigarettes, just like you have a relationship with your coworkers, your significant other, your family members, that this is a relationship and we're ending the relationship. So we actually need to have a breakup and be very clear to not only the subconscious mind, but to the conscious mind that the client is making a choice to end the relationship. And when we end a relationship, to actually be ready to walk away from it, there's several things that we need. I'm sure nobody listening to this recording has ever done this, ended a relationship and gone back and ended it again and gone back and ended again and gone back. And that's how many people end up with cigarettes, is they stop and they start and they stop and they start. And it's because they didn't get closure. And for anyone that's listening to the recording that came to my IMDHA workshop on emotional divorce, you'll recognize these steps. Anytime you are ending a relationship, for you to be finally completely done and free to move on, there's 4 steps you need. You need to feel heard, you need to feel validated, you need to feel empathized with, and you must have a good apology. Well, you're never going to get that from a real person, so we do that in hypnosis, and you're certainly not going to get that from a pack of cigarettes, so we do that in hypnosis as well. And what I want to offer anyone listening live or listening to the recording is, if you email me, I will send you that portion of the program, just that script of how do you actually create emotional closure, because one of the biggest things that I run into with smokers is they're mad that they're quitting. They feel like, my wife made me quit, my husband made me quit, my kids are making me quit. But no, this is a choice that they made, and this helps them own that this is their choice and get the closure that they need. So if you email me, I will send you that script.
For those of us on the call here tonight, you will do that, Sherry.
Yes.
Well,
yes,
give us your email, for heaven's sake, because what a great
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
I'll give everyone a moment to grab a pen and paper.
Well, and we'll put it in the chat room as well. So
Perfect. Excellent. So it's Sherry, SHERRY, at illuma.life, and I will spell that for you. ILLU, M as in Mary, .life, LIFE. And .life is an actual thing. It's not .net, .com. It's actually .life. Okay. And it just happens to fit my business name, which is Illuma Life. So that's why I use it.
Okay. So I think that's a really nice offer. Thank you very much. You are sharing an awful lot with us tonight.
Happy to.
So what are you going to share? What is kind of, I don't want you to give away all the secrets and all that, but what is in store for your day, your Thursday day-long workshop?
We're going to go through all the activities, the scripts, the handouts. We won't go through every single script in hypnosis, because that would take too much time, but we'll read through everything. We'll get to practice certain pieces. You'll get a chance to experience the different icebreakers. They'll get either, I'm not sure if I'll put it on a CD or a thumb drive, all the handouts, so that they actually, when they walk out of there, they're prepared to just go start promoting groups.
You said earlier that there are, I don't remember the number you quoted, I'm sure you do. How many million smokers do we still have?
34.3 million adults.
34.3 million adults, and 400 some are dying every year.
480,000 deaths that are smoking related. and those include people that stopped smoking maybe 10 years ago, but their death is smoking related.
You would think that the numbers would decrease simply by attrition.
That is a decrease.
Well, it is a decrease, I understand.
That is a decrease.
But we still have more people coming into this because there may not be smokers making, the pack-a-day smoker or R.J. Reynolds rich, but we have vaping. We have all sorts of other things that are enticing new people to join the club, the smoking club.
And the younger teens and younger adults are switching to vaping. And when vaping first came out, it was kind of touted as being so much healthier. Even the CDC said for a while that it was so much healthier. But there's new statistics now that show, there was a research published in January 2018 that found that mice exposed to e-cigarette vapor displayed DNA damage in their lungs, bladder, and heart, and they found that it causes that popcorn lung in people who use vaping. The teens I work with, that the statistics show that the start of smoking with teens, whether they're talking cigarettes or vaping or e-cigarettes, is lower. But the teens that I work with here in Arizona in my practice suggest to me that it's not really lower, and that the kids are smoking like crazy because they're allowed to vape on campus because it's not a cigarette. So they're vaping all day long, and it's way more than a pack of cigarettes a day. So it's a crazy place. So yeah.
Not to mention the glycerin and all of the other stuff that they have in that, the inhaling. It's just,
they actually found, I wrote it down here because I wanted to share it. I don't see it real quickly now, but there's actually chemicals in it that are causing long-term DNA damage, and they don't know what will happen to those people with that DNA damage when they have children, so that's kind of a scary thought.
Well, not to take away from the kids, but my mother is now vaping, and I hope it doesn't affect her DNA because I might suddenly get.
I'm not sure it works that way, Michael, but I feel your pain. My mother died of lung cancer 2 years ago, and she smoked like a chimney from the time that she was 15 years old until she was 77 and passed at 79. And
well, my mother all her life, and she's made it to 88, but now she stopped smoking. She says she stopped smoking.
Right.
What she's doing is vaping, and that's she says, and that's not nearly as bad for you.
Listen to the clever hypnotic message that has been delivered by the tobacco companies, the vaping companies. Juul.
Yes.
Juul drives me crazy. You know what that is? That's a little vape. They run newspaper ads, full-page ads in Chicago papers and probably across the country that have smoking. It's hard to quit. I start again. It's so hard to quit. I start smoking again. It's so hard to quit. And they do that 15 times.
Yes.
If you're just going by a Jerry Kine explanation of direct drive hypnosis, you do it 15 times to install a suggestion. It's so hard, I start again. It's so hard, I start again. What kind of message is that? That's a hypnotic message. And then on top of that, it's healthier than that nasty cigarette stuff.
Not as many carcinogens.
Right.
And while that's true, it's causing DNA damage. It's
right.
giving lung, and they're smoking so much more that they're way more addicted to the nicotine.
Didn't we say something earlier about evil hypnotists?
Yes.
Wasn't there a mention of evil hypnotists? This is an evil use of hypnosis.
I agree.
And it's working because Michael's mother, who is an intelligent woman, raised an intelligent son, has done something really healthy for herself by switching. I mean, it's not her fault.
No.
But
I have very intelligent people sit in my office all the time and tell me, well, I don't smoke anymore. I just vape.
Right. Yeah. So that's okay. Can I pull out my vape now? No. Okay. Sorry.
We actually had to, outside of our building, it's always had a sign that says this is a tobacco-free campus. And now they've actually had to order a new sign that says that people can't vape here because people are wandering around vaping in the hallways. And, We don't know the statistics of secondhand on that, and it's probably going to be better than the secondhand on the cigarettes, but yeah, not good, not good.
Okay, I'm going to ask for another secret. We're almost out of time. And if anybody has questions, by the way, please put them in the chat room. But I got to ask one more secret. If you can share it with us, maybe something that we could even start right away and really capitalize on immediately. Is there anything that we can do about those people who say, but what am I going to do about my cravings?
Yeah, that's where I give them the diaphragmatic breathing. And in the first class, we actually give them a scent anchor, because scent is our most primal sense. And if you can anchor, and I tend to prefer to anchor peppermint, spearmint, cinnamon, lemon, something that's a taste as well. And I send them home with a little goodie bag with tea bags of that flavor, little sugar-free candies, little sugar-free gums, and a little bottle of essential oil. Because when they have experienced that scent in hypnosis, feeling, and I'm using the phrase, free of cigarettes now and forever, free of whatever now and forever, because I use this for a lot of things. And then they use the diaphragmatic breathing, which produces endorphins, which makes them feel good, which means that the cravings go away, and they add the scent in. It's really quite powerful. And I don't want them to do it just when they have the cravings. I want them to do it every single hour. I want to get ahead of the curve. I don't want to be fighting the curve.
Nice. Nice.
Again, part of the homework.
Yeah.
You have to remember to do it. Here's a tool that will work, but you have to remember to do it.
So I give other tools as well, but those are just my favorites because they work so well and they're so easy to do.
Yeah.
You know, Sherry, I think we're kind of running to the end of your time, and I think the thing that's a takeaway for me, and pardon me for having been distracted because we're trying to coordinate here, but the takeaway for me is a reminder, maybe because I'm just not as in touch with young people, as some folks are, but you really have brought that home to me and sort of added a sense of real urgency to this that I think is important. I want to let people know, because here's the deal: we are hypnotists after all, and we know the power of the mind, and we know the power of visualization, and we're getting ready for Daytona Beach, and oh my gosh, the one day before the weekend, the Thursday, Sherry Gilbert is going to be presenting her smoking program, and I think it'd be helpful to give people something to visualize. So if we were to walk into your room in the middle of the day, what's that going to look like?
We're going to be sitting in probably a circle, the way that I have my clients sit, and you'll probably see either a lot of laughter and fun, or you'll see a lot of people in hypnosis.
Which isn't very much fun, right?
Yes. My style of teaching is to be very engaged and have a lot of fun. You learn better when you're having fun. If you're not having fun, you're not going to retain the information. And you are going to get a syllabus. You're going to get everything handed to you. But it would be so much better to absorb it. And you will only do that when we're having fun. So that's my goal, to have a lot of fun.
Great. Well, and we do have.
I'm so excited to go to Daytona. The hotel, I understand, has been completely revamped.
It has been completely revamped. It's wonderful. Millions of dollars spent just to make it ready for Sherry Gilbert's smoking program.
Yes.
And I just want to throw out real quick too that that's not all Sherry's doing. I mean, she's working hard on that day before the conference, but she's also doing on Sunday a free 2-hour workshop at the end of the day on Sunday, the 3-point approach to releasing anxiety. And then on Saturday, also at 3 o'clock, there'll be Socratic questioning in hypnosis. So you got a lot of stuff planned.
I do.
Lovely.
And we have a lot of opportunities to learn from you and enjoy from you.
So we do have just about 3 minutes left. So if anybody has a last question for Sherry, here's speak now or forever hold your peace, as they say. And while you're formulating your question, I got to tell you, Sherry, you've got a song stuck in my head now. And maybe it will be the reminder that I need, as I said about the urgency with kids. There's that old song about smoking in the boys' room.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes.
What I've got now is vaping in the hallways, because
Can we all do that together? Vaping in the hall.
Always. What?
I'm not going to sing because I like everybody too much. I don't want to torture you.
You never stopped Oprah. Come on, Sherry.
I know what my talents are, and singing isn't one of them.
No, not mine either, but it doesn't stop me either.
I do want to go back if no one else has another question. I know I saw it come up briefly in the chat that someone asked for do it on the thumb drive, but I might just email it too or put it in a thing. But I'll make sure that you have a digital version of everything. And then I know Donald brought up the question that he's not been effective with using BNI, and it certainly does matter what kind of chapter you join and how you do it. So if anybody decides they want to try it and they would like some guidance from me, please feel free to reach out to me, email me. I'm happy to do it. I mentor new members there all the time, and I joined 4 years ago, and I'm so busy that I work 6 and 7 days a week trying to keep up, and I've had to hire another hypnotherapist and train her to work the way I do. So I'd love to see every single hypnotherapist that is at IMDHA, IACT, is busy or busier than I am and having that kind of success. So if there's something I can do to support that and help you get there, I would love to do that.
Great. All right. Karen, you got anything else?
Well, I have one more that I just saw here on the chat room. It's not necessarily a question. It is vaping with THC is coming. I'm just curious, do you have people ask you if you can help them get off? A two-part question, very quickly, Sherry, because we're out of time, really. But get people say, "Can you get me off of marijuana?" Or can you help me quit smoking, but not marijuana?
Yes to both of those things, and we will address that in the one-day workshop.
Right. So vaping of marijuana is coming. I don't know if that was an ad or exactly what that was, but I just wanted to get that out.
Oh yes, very popular. I have a lot of clients doing it now.
Yeah. It's very popular. Okay, Michael, we've got to remember to open everybody up so that we can say a good.
Say goodbye to Sherry, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry. It was fun having a girlfriend chat. I really had a good time with you tonight. Yeah. If that sets the tone for what the workshop's going to be about, it's going to be fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bravo. Grazie.
And look at this incredible timing. Attila's camera is working.
Yes, and Attila has just joined us on his phone, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, and we.
Oh, Karen, I muted you by mistake, and I know you're talking. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right.
You see me.
Okay.
You cut me off complimenting Attila's handsome face. I said we can now see his handsome face.
It was an incredible ride for the last 1 hour.
What was that?
It was an incredible ride for the last 1 hour. Try to figure this out, how to work it.
Yes. Well, we're delighted that you're here with us, Attila. And let me just open up the segment, if I might, by telling everybody we have just been joined then by Attila Kun, who is a clinical therapist and teacher with almost 30 years of experience. And he's the director of the IMDHA approved facility, the International Hypnosis and Hypnotherapy Academy in Canada and in Hungary. He's worked with thousands of clients and has trained hundreds of hypnotherapists all over the world. And in fact, you've got like 2 teachers or something at all. You've got several different schools going, don't you? So, Attila.
Thank you. I'm doing hypnotherapy since 1996 and teaching it now for, since then. And 2008, I started in Europe. In Hungary, I was the first one starting teaching clinical hypnotherapy. It's been going great. I rather answer questions.
Okay, well, let's just start right into it then. Your program, his program is, in fact, I need to, I'm disorganized because I've been working on getting you online, so I'm sorry about that. But your program is a pre-conference as well, is that right? It's the one day before, I believe?
Yes, that's correct. I'm going to do a one-day teaching on the regression therapy.
On regression therapy. And so there's all kinds of, a lot of people are using regression for a whole lot of things. we've all learned various ways to go about it. So I'm particularly interested, Attila. One of the things is I've come to know you through the years. You're a delightful guy. I love spending time with you, and I'm sure that the class is going to be exciting and interesting. And what I know about you is that everything you do is just a little unique. You've got your own style, your own way to do things, and that's the thing that I really want to let people know about, so that when they're thinking about this, I don't want them to say, hey, I've already done some regression work. I want them to know that Attila's got something a little different for them. So but one of the things in your talking points that you mentioned is pseudo and true regression. Can we start there? Is that a place to talk about the distinctions between those things that you make? And
Yes, absolutely. Basically, regression, when we start to do regression therapy, most people are going to think of that, maybe not necessarily like who is already doing therapy work, but beginners who are just getting into this field. They might thinking that actually regression is going by time and age, and we're going to go back in certain specific times and eras. And the reality is what we have to find first is the underlying emotion, which is troubling the client at the moment. And that's one of the hardest things to identify in the beginning of the interview, which I'm going to get into it in a second. So once the regression is happening through what we are using effect bridge techniques, which basically based on creating emotions and jumping with the emotions into back in time. So once the client can actually experience a regression back into a childhood, let's say into a childhood memory, then they are going to experience it as they are living in that moment. So therefore, they are going to talk from that perspective. Old, and tomorrow what I'm going to experience when I'm just a day older as a 10 years old. And they might actually act, behave, and talk like a 10 years old. We would identify this as a true regression back into that time. While pseudo regression would be is from the present time, they're going to go back in memory and talking about the past events.
I see. By the way, you
how do you determine the difference? In listening to them, in observing them, how do you determine the difference?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, how do you determine the difference? If it's pseudo or if it's actual, how do you determine the difference?
Basically, one more time. The pseudo regression is basically they are talking about as is not today, talking about a past event, what happened in the past. The true regression is when they are experiencing it, they're talking about it. I'm a 10 years old who's experiencing that event right now.
So what I was really trying to specify, Attila, as I think what I understand you saying is, if they're talking in present tense, they are revivifying. If they're talking in past tense, they are not there yet. And that's a simple way of telling the difference.
That would be a very simple way to explain it, yes. So imagine that I'm going to do a regression therapy with you, and suddenly, now as an adult from this life, from this memory event, you are going to talk about your past experiences. Or you are going to get regressed actually, and you will relive that idea or that memory as it's happening now as you are 10 years old. So to that 10 years old memory, the future hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely makes sense. I'm curious about whether you always associate them into the regress state, or do you sometimes do it from a dissociated state, or more of a timeline element, an observation state?
I always start with the emotion, what has been triggered at the moment.
Always an associated state then.
So sorry, because I was speaking and you were speaking and I didn't hear.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. Always from an associated perspective. Is that what I hear you saying?
In a way, okay, how do I explain this? So let's say here's the client comes in with an interview. And in this interview, we need to find in the beginning, what is their secondary gain already? If I am unaware what is motivating this person, underlying emotion, then we can go and jump all around in time and stories and memories, and we will never really be able to identify the cause effect, where is it originates from.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so for example, I'll give you a little story here. How can a therapy goal offset? I had a young man came to me with an OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and he was constantly cleaning, washing his hands, but he came with his father. So in the interview, I had both of them in the room, and the father says to me, "He is driving me insane with this action." Now, I heard this, and it just got lingered in my mind. I said, okay. Now, the father goes home, and I do the therapy with the young man. So the young man says that he caught his girlfriend cheating on him with his friend. So from then on, he said he started to washing. So right away now, as a therapist, you can go into a conclusion, that could be the issue. He feels dirty because he also had an intimate relationship with the girl after that, not knowing that he has been cheated on. But then I started to questioning the relationship of the parents. Then I found out that the mother actually cheated on the father. So then I thought, oh, maybe that could be the trigger mechanism. But eventually I went back to the original sentence, what the father said, "He's driving me crazy." Yeah. And that's when I started to digging into what's happened there between the young man and the father. And then I found out the father was an alcoholic who was beating the mother. That's why the mother left him. So now this was an unconscious revenge on the father because they are living together.
Nice.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you follow all this?
Yeah, in fact, when you said that earlier, when you said the father said...
So it's so easy to go off in an idea with our head that, oh, that could be the problem. Mm-hmm. But so many times the cause of the effect is actually, there is a lot more behind it than what we see. And at the moment, there is just something got triggered. And that trigger mechanism is started, we know that the initial sensitizing event, this initial sensitizing event, basically about 2 years prior to the catharsis point is going to happen.
Right.
So give me a little bit of a clue about how you go back to the initial sensitizing event.
Well, there are so many different people are explaining these factors. The initial sensitizing event would be when things are started to happening as a trouble. But what I noticed through my therapies, and I'm doing this now for almost 30 years, that there's about 2 years prior activation to that initial sensitizing event when it's actually is going to really start to kicking in. And I'm not saying that this is like a 24 months, but I'm going to, let's say something happening today in 2019 with the client. So I'm going to identify the emotion, and I'm going to start to do an effect bridge jumping with this emotion. Mm-hmm. Let's say we're going to jump back to 2017, then there is started to happening some problems, which means to me that would be an initial sensitizing event that, oh, okay, this is when it's happening now. So now it's coming into the catharsis in the past 2 years. But no. Before the initial sensitizing event, I'm going to look at the first 2 years prior to that. What possibly went wrong there? What possibly could be a trigger mechanism which is going to start the behavior or the issues or the problems or the emotions leading into the point of starting really to working that out.
Well, I love what Michael said at the beginning, that you put a different spin on certain things. And I really am intrigued by what you said about this, that the initial sensitizing event, many regressionists, Attila, you probably are already aware, say that the initial sensitizing event has to happen before the age of 7. And you just said, oh no, it can happen 2 years ago or a few years ago, but there's a trigger point that happens before that. Is that what I heard? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, okay, so basically what I'm going to do, and this is going to be explained, and I'm going to create a chart, and I explain it on the seminar. So if I'm going to start an emotion today, and we're going to follow this emotion, when was this another time experienced? If this emotion, let's say I feel lost, okay, when did you feel lost another time in another area? They're going to say 2016. Okay, we're going to go into that story a little bit, and then I say, how did it make you feel in that time? And if it's a new emotion is going to open up, I'm going to follow the new emotion going back in time again with that new emotion. And yes, you are right, correct. Usually, sooner or later, we're going to end up before the age 10, usually before around the age 7-ish, by the time when they are reaching that age 7. that's how we are able to determine. But the initial sensitizing event is not necessarily going to be age 7. I think that's going to be the cause of the effect where the original emotion has been set into motion.
All right, and if I hear you right, it sounds like your approach utilizes the affect bridge in order to go back there, right? So they come in with an emotion that sort of starts the thing, and and you trace that emotion back to a source, correct?
That would be the idea.
Okay, pardon me. The reason I'm asking it is I know it's a very, very basic question for some people, but we've got folks on the call that are all different levels of experience with hypnosis, some brand new people and stuff. So I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the affect bridge itself and how that works, because you know, some people may not really know that. Okay, so the idea would be, instead of following age to going into regression, which I never do, first we need to find the emotion which is troubling the person right now, and then start with this emotion after the person is in a hypnotic trance. When was another time, another era, another event when they experienced the same emotion? And it might take them back right away to a childhood memory, or it might going to create them just jumping back into another memory, another time. Now, let's say they're gonna jump back 5 or 10 years in this frame. I'm going to ask the same emotion. If the same emotion is gonna come up, I'm going to ask them, how did this make you feel in that event? Because at that event not necessarily makes them feel the same way. So that new feeling, okay, if the same feeling is going on, I follow the same feeling. Now, but if the new feeling, if they're gonna name a new feeling, I'm going to follow, and this feeling, what you described, and usually it takes only a few jumps before we're gonna end up before the age 7 age. But by the way,
now I know at age 7, before
I think we may have just lost you for a second, Attila. I don't know if I'm looking to see if he's still on the line. He is. Oh, there he is.
Here he is. But his microphone is off. Attila, your microphone is off.
I'll get it.
Oh, okay.
Give me a second. Give me a second.
There we go.
We're back.
Yeah, sorry. I'm in the middle of a little jungle area in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah. Beautiful place, I'll bet.
Oh, it is. And if any of you want to come visit me and you have a holiday here.
You were talking, Attila, about the affect bridge and following the feeling back.
Yes.
We lost you there for a moment. I just want to make sure that you weren't cut off, if you were saying all that you wanted to say about this.
So basically, once we are going to identify the emotion today, I'm going to jump with that emotion to another time frame when they felt the same emotion. If the same emotion is opened, I work with that story. We might re-examine if there was an initiation to the same feeling prior to that. If not, let's say this emotion 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago opened up a new feeling. Then I follow the effect bridge with the new feeling. And believe it or not, we're going to do about 3, 4, or 5 different of these jumps. And eventually we're going to end up with the same feeling at childhood, what is being triggered now in this present time. And that's how I know I found the cause of the effect. And it worked so far every single time when I did this.
And so once you get them back to that initial sensitizing event, then what?
The initial sensitizing event is basically, let's say, started age 7, let's just assume, it doesn't matter. The idea would be here now, I'm going to use different type of techniques. It depends what do we dealing with. It could be grieving. It could be the child lost a mother, a parent, grandparents, or friends. We don't know what we're going to stumble upon. So upon that principle there, I'm going to utilize certain Gestalt therapy or segments of Gestalt therapy, which means that I'm going to use a Gestalt dialogue, let's say, within the person who caused the harm or the issue for the child. And so many times what I discovered that childhood memory is actually not necessarily true to the event. It may be a false, not just false memory, but it's a false emotional memory.
Well, because we always store our
Store
memories.
emotions differently than an adult.
We store our memories from the perception at which we receive the information, right? And the perception could be very wrong or very different or skewed.
The most important, once we are going into the childhood, is basically now we have to deal with that little child on their level, not as a grown-up. Now we are dealing with the child emotion. We have to heal the inner child. And so many therapists, they thinking the idea is always, okay, to push the client into the idea of forgiveness. I had a lady just in August when I was in Europe, and she was sexually molested by the father. And we went into the grief period to creating final goodbyes in a Gestalt dialogue to the father. The father already passed away, so I'm creating an imaginary goodbyes. And finally, she says to me, you know what? I just realized it's not even the father I'm hating. I said, what do you mean? It's my mother. I said, what do you mean? Because she knew about it and she didn't save me. So not necessarily the idea always to pushing somebody into the idea, oh, you have to forgive. It's coming to the understanding sometimes is simple, the healing procedure or the first step.
Yeah. Nice.
And I'm a fan of the I think affect works pretty well with that feeling or complete that feeling.
Karen, I don't know if you can hear me, but your microphone has just kind of gone really cattywampus.
Yes, I'm here, but as I said, I'm in the jungle. Sometimes my connection is a little bit fluctuating. Can you repeat the question, please, Michael?
It wasn't me, it was Karen, and it was her microphone, actually. So, Karen,
I don't know if it's working back now.
You're better now.
Okay, so Attila, what I was asking is sometimes, I think the affect bridge is a great technique as long as the client is willing to at least come to terms on some level with that feeling.
Yeah, I'm back here, sorry.
And if you can't get them in touch with that feeling, if they absolutely won't latch on to that feeling so that you can affect off the feeling, is there another way to go about doing the sage regression?
Is there another way? Can you repeat the last word?
Is there another way to go about doing the age regression you're talking about?
The only way I would say to everybody to do age regression is going through the emotions. So first we have to identify the emotion. Now, so many times a person comes in and they're going to talk about all kind of scattered emotions, all kind of ideas. So I have a specific questionnaires and a specific way to define really what is their underlying secondary emotion at the moment, which is creating all the problems. And until we are not identified that, how are we going to do a regression therapy? You basically just going to go all over the places into different stories. And what I have learned in the past almost 30 years is not the story is the important, is to finding the right connections to each story. Why are they repeating and repeating and repeating the same thing? And there are so many different trigger mechanisms.
Attila, when I was in my 20s, I was in a therapeutic situation briefly, and I was working with a therapist, and he gave me a nickname. He called me Golden Boy, and he called me Golden Boy because, quite frankly, no matter what it was that he talked about, I was very good at having some kind of intellectual way to respond, and completely avoided any sort of emotional connection with what I was doing. Is there a way to work with somebody like that?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So look, the whole idea would be is that we are experiencing sometimes troubles in our life, and that somehow that emotion got triggered today, most likely started about 2 years prior to this, before it's manifested into this catharsis. So I'm going to look at first what possibly started the trigger mechanism 2 years ago. Now that emotion is going to start to leading me to the next affect bridge, to going back in time, because basically we are re-triggering our life. Let's say, give you a hint. Here is a father who is, let's say, 40 years old. Now they're gonna have a celebration of a birthday there, let's say 10 years old, young child, doesn't matter, boy or girl. On that birthday, it's a happy day, but something can get triggered in the subconscious mind of the father of a trauma, what he experienced when he was at the same age. So the child of his own child's birthday, a happy moment can start to triggering for him actually childhood trauma, which is now starting at that moment 2 years from now when it's going to manifest into a total blow.
Yes. I'm also wondering, and I see it in your talking points, the inner child is something that was a really kind of a popular theme in pop psychology in the 70s and the 80s. And I guess what I'm wondering is there any reason, or do you ever do regression when it isn't about problem solving, when it's more like going back into the past to find something of value? Just, you know, other reasons besides
sorry, you were cutting out.
sorry.
The most important, I think, is the initial interview. So sometimes actually I spend more time in the interview, and I might do just a shorter therapy session in the first time. Also, we need to determine what type of a therapy session we're going to use. Are we going to use direct hypnosis? Are we going to use parts therapy? I'm going to use regression therapy. Am I going to do some form of a reprogramming? What type of a techniques am I going to apply to the client? And also, we need to understand their needs. I also have to be figuring out what is their personalities. So a person who's an analytical mind, I can't go on and bubble and bubble and bubble because they won't take it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we need to also match the person's personality and realizing that what's really their needs. But also we need to learn to listen. The client is going to tell us their problems in the first 5 minutes. And that's the first 5-10 minutes is the most crucial because they will tell you what is the real behind it. After that, the rest of it is going to be the filling stories about their problems.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, a whole variety of different techniques that you use in therapy. What I'm wondering is, when do you use regression as opposed to something else? What would?
I think also it's been a sort of a, how do I say? Many therapists I'm seeing that they thinking that the solution is for everything is going back into time.
Yes.
And I don't agree with that. I do believe that if I find the right emotion, the client in a hypnosis, when I activate that emotion, or I'm going to start to bring this and recall or call this emotion out of this person, it's automatically is going to activate a next event or another event when it happened, but not necessarily pushing the client into it. And the most important is, if we are going to trigger some kind of a traumatic event, what do you do when somebody is going to go into an age 10 when they were molested? Do they need to relive that? Do they need to go into a true regression? No, absolutely a horrid memory to that person. So immediately we need to deal with that idea. How are we going to deal with that if I trigger something into the client, which is really traumatic event? Does this make sense, Mike?
That makes great sense. Thank you. I keep I'm a little challenged. I got to admit, you're kind of hard to hear, but I'm delighted that you've been able to stay with us, and it's working out. I hope everybody else is able to hear pretty well. I've got to tell you, just because we're stopped for a second, I just need to mention, Rita, I can see you, and Arifa, and I see that I can see that occasionally you're having a little hearing as well, or something. So,
I have a hearing aid.
Well, there you go. If the rest of us had one, that would be very helpful.
The audio
I turned off the air conditioner, so I'm burning.
The audio does keep cutting out or doesn't exist at all in some cases, so it is kind of difficult. But I do want to go back to that, Attila, talking about regression is used in a very specific situation. I'm so delighted to hear that you don't use it on every single person who walks in or every single thing that walks in. Because
absolutely.
Every really is different, right?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think one of the biggest mistakes to think of that we always have a cause and an effect. And it could be the truth. Yes. Most of the time we store some kind of an event, a memory, or an emotion in a childhood. But you know what? From my own experience, when I was a young boy, I got beaten up once because of my parents, they didn't understand the situation, what I went through. I have a sister who is 10 years younger than me. I'm 58 years old now. So anyhow, and in a regression therapy, actually, one of my students live in my classroom, I allowed them to hypnotize me. And when I went back to this storyline, I have to admit that to myself and own up to it. I was a part of the cause of the effect. Basically what happened, actually, I squirted ice cold water on my sister. She started to screaming. My mom came out and beat the heck out of me with the wooden slippers.
Right.
So because of that event, I was always angry or mad at the event and the parents. But by revisiting this memory, I had to realize that, okay, I did something wrong as well. Even though the punishment was way severe, I was able to move on and not to hang on to that anger.
Lovely.
It sounds like for you in that example, it went very quickly. But when you're working with a client in regression, is it always one quick session or is it sometimes several sessions?
Another mistake what a lot of therapists think that we're going to resolve a client's issues in one session, and impossible. Like, I can't believe that actually some people, I'm not saying that it can't happen. Yes, it can happen. But generally speaking, the first event is to finding the cause. And once I identify the cause of the effect, it's already probably we are in a 90-minute session. And the session should not last for more than 90 minutes. So a half an hour initial conversation, maybe an hour therapy, or an hour conversation and a half an hour mini therapy. And sometime throughout the therapy, if the client is going to get triggered into, I might have to switch techniques. And that is going to also force me that, okay, now we have to close that.
So we've lost you for a moment, Attila. Have we lost you entirely?
I start to watch therapy with somebody and it's going to get triggered into a regression.
There you go. We did lose you for a second, like a middle of it. And I'm so sorry. But I think we got the gist. Are we good? I feel like I'm talking to somebody on the moon, Attila.
It is a little bit like that.
To someone on the moon. Welcome, space travelers, everyone. So I'm really looking forward to this. I'll tell you. So you're one day, you're Thursday of the just before the weekend of the conference, and what's actually going to happen inside of your classroom? What are participants going to experience in the room with you that day?
If there is a volunteer, I will be more than happy to do an entire session on this and do a live demonstration on a person, including the interview state, including the actually hypnotizing the person. I'm going to demonstrate how to discover actually the secondary gain, what's running behind the scene. And look, once we understand what is running the person, it's easy to start the therapy.
Right.
You see, many therapists, they try to discovering the secondary gain in the session. I try to determine their secondary gain by the interview.
Right, and that really is one of the novel things. In fact, that can very well be the whole session for some people.
I'm more than happy. I hope there will be some people interested in my stuff. I also learned a lot of stuff from Gil a long time ago, and also I learned from my own teacher, Annie Slackton, which I'm very grateful. And also I do a lot of different type of therapies. I never ever guided somebody directly into past lives, for example.
But they spontaneously regress there sometimes, do they not?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what I noticed? What happens sometimes when we are going to reach this magical age before age 7, and there is something comes up, that's when we can do the initial jumping that, have you ever felt the same feeling another time? And yes, it does happen that they go into past lives.
Yeah.
But I never guided directly somebody into past lives.
So I'm going to switch subjects just for a moment, if you don't mind, Attila. You mentioned just a second ago that you learned some things from Gil. I'm guessing you're speaking of Gil Boyne.
Yes.
And you will also be doing a seminar at the IACT conference on quick induction. So I'm curious if you got some of those quick inductions from the Bill Boyne style of.
Well, basically, I started out a long, long time ago when I was 17 years old as a magician. So I traveled in my magic shows all over the world. Eventually, I started a stage hypnosis. However, to me, just to learn stage hypnosis wasn't enough. So I actually went through all hypnotherapy training, clinical hypnotherapy training, guilds training, and everything. And eventually, I had a car accident in 2005 and I broke my neck. And hypnosis and also a good surgeon, of course, has helped me to recover. Now, also in 2014, I finished a nutritional science degree because I also noticed that there are so many times we are unable to deal with certain psychological effects like anxieties, depression, and many times it is linked also the way of our lifestyles. And as now we know it by science, is the hormones in the brain is being secreted in the guts, in the bacteria are destroyed in our gut. It's impossible to have a healthy brain. Now, quick inductions, I have about 12 different type of techniques, and it's nothing like what Bill Boyne does, it's totally different ones.
Okay, so would you mind sharing one with us? Giving us maybe something we can take away from tonight, maybe use even tomorrow.
A good one. Well, I also was a martial artist. I did Kung Fu for a very long time. So I learned through Kung Fu and Aikido very simple, little gentle, tiny touches and moves which can actually help the person to position them into the point when we can do. It's almost like an electrical jolt. It's like a sudden shock to the nerve system. And I will be more than happy to demonstrate some of them in any of the conferences if they ask me. If they go online, they can see some of these on videos in YouTube as well.
And where would they find those? It's ATTILAKUN on YouTube?
AttilaHypnotist.com, or you type in YouTube Attila Hypnotist, they can find me everywhere.
Got it.
Attila Hypnotist.
Got it.
Attila Hypnotist.
So I'm wondering, we want to encourage the folks that are on the call, if you've got any questions for Attila, you could put them in the box, something like that. Sure, that he gets asked. We've got about 10 minutes left to go here before we have to say goodnight to you all. So anyway, feel free. Feel free to ask your questions.
And I'm just checking the chat room real quickly. But in the meantime, give me a rundown. We are going to start your class on Wednesday, and for the full day, what's going to happen? Will there be practice built in? Will people be working with each other in some way, shape, or form? You mentioned a demo, but what else will be going on in that day-long class?
By the way, the class is on Thursday, Karen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just Wednesday, Thursday.
I'm not sure if Attila heard your question.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Okay, I'm very sorry. I would like a little you already told us that you're going to likely do a demonstration, and I'm just curious what else might be going on in that day-long class that we can expect to take away with us. Will there be some practice? Will there be ways to actually rehearse this, take away some actual experience?
The class, what I will do is a one-day course, nothing but a regression therapy. If they want, I can show a couple of quick inductions as well. But basically, when I teach regression therapy in my course, it's a one-week course. From this one-week course, I'm going to give one day. Course is actually what I have, the 200 pages manual what I created on regression, just on regression therapy.
Wow.
That's a lot of work to boil down into one day.
Because I also have some psychology background, so what I'm trying to do is bringing different type of techniques. How you gonna work with the 10 years old? How you gonna work with actually teenagers? How you work with grown-ups? How you gonna work with somebody who is divorced? So there's so many different aspects of what you can do and what you can say to somebody. Therapy is not a cookie cutter. We really, really have to pay attention to the individual and find an individual approach as how I'm going to help this person.
Oh my gosh, I hope you're really going to teach that, Attila, because we hear so often in our profession, listen to the client and they'll tell you what to do. I hope that you will actually teach what to listen for so that you'll know exactly what to do.
When I teach the classrooms, I watch, the students when they are hypnotizing each other and they doing actually these type of regressions. And where I see they making a mistake all the time, they get lost in the stories. And the story is not the important part. What happened is how we are going to come to a closure, a forgiveness, a move on, an understanding of what happened to us. Otherwise, we are triggering the story and the memory, and we can get stuck in that. Another story, another time, another story, another time. We need to learn how to deal with that particular event because it's keep coming back and coming back. So that's why it's repeating, because it's in the subconscious mind. It's never been dealt with.
And so once they learn it, once it comes into awareness, does that facilitate the healing? Does that trigger the healing?
No, I'm not sure what you mean by
perspective.
We are again cutting out.
Yeah, he didn't hear you, Karen.
I'm wondering if once they get at that awareness, once they become aware of, and perhaps
yeah, it's froze.
Still not getting. He's not getting me, Michael.
Uh-oh.
You may have to.
I don't know what. Attila, can you hear me?
Sorry, we were frozen again.
Okay. Okay. So, but now you can hear me, right?
Yes.
All right, then I bet you can hear Karen. Can you try it one more time, Karen?
Yes.
I can try one more time. So now I have to go back to my train of thought and remember where I was. And I don't. I'm sorry, I lost it, Attila.
Okay.
No, it's all right. It's all right. And I didn't hear you because even the screen froze completely, so I didn't hear nothing and no movement.
Right.
So Attila, if we could regress Karen to about 2.5 minutes ago.
There you go.
Okay.
then she would remember.
Well, that could be actually a very challenging thing because if I open something, me as a therapist, my responsibility to close that. We are not allowed to leave the client open with an emotion to go home. So once we are open, our duty is to close or find, even if it's a temporary solution, until we can continue the work maybe following week or next therapy session.
Right.
So I can't open up a person emotionally unless I know that I'm able to follow through the whole thing.
Do you ever do regression to find lost objects?
If I what?
Do you ever do regression to find lost objects?
Actually, it happened to me twice, you believe it or not. A young man came to me, this was about 20 years ago, and he says that he lost his wedding ring. And so we did the regression therapy, actually, and we're doing this is what it's called, the stop frame effect, like you are watching a movie. It's called stop the frame, look around, turn around. So we're doing all these, and we could not find nothing. So eventually, we went through the motions. When he went home, he took off his working clothing. And he said, he looked through everywhere and it was nowhere to be found. And I told him, I said, look, what did you do with the overall? And he said, oh, I just tossed it on the top of the washer. And I said to him, now I want you to go home and look behind the washer machine. He says, oh, I looked at it many, many times. I said, yes, but one more time you go home and look through. And you guys, believe it or not, the ring was actually hanging on one of the hook on the back of the washer and the dryer. And he found the...
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So Attila, just because we've got just a couple minutes left, and like I told you, I know you. I've had some lovely conversations with you, and I really enjoy being with you. And I hope that the folks that are listening to this call can get a sense of that. So let me ask you a question that I think that might give them a little bit of idea about you. I'm curious, and I don't know the answer to this question, but you said you started out as a magician. And
Yes.
I love the fact there are a whole lot of people in hypnosis, by the way, who seem to have made that that journey from magic into hypnosis. How did that happen for you?
Well, I was performing in California one day, and you believe it or not, Peter Revine, I don't know if you guys heard of him, came up to me. He was also an illusionist and a stage hypnotist. And that time I used to have a magic shop in the world's biggest shopping center in Canada. So he says, next time I come to the town, I will give you tickets to my hypnosis show. And he did. And I went to see a first hypnosis show, I don't know, it was maybe 1990, something like that. And I watched this man, and I said, I can't believe this cannot be true. And I was thinking, like, I just saw the devil. And I'm like, no, I don't believe in the devil, so I have to learn this. So I went into the library, and fortunately in the library, I could not find any books on stage hypnosis, but only on medical hypnosis. And that's what it's pushed me into the therapy field.
So you actually went, originally your thought was for performance hypnosis.
Yes, actually until 2005, I performed with my stage hypnosis shows everywhere.
Lovely.
I trained so many stage hypnotists all over the world, but I had a car accident, I broke my neck, and I made a commitment, and please don't laugh, but it's kind of a silly thing. But I told myself as they were pushing me into the operating room, I said, God, please let me cut the grass one more time. And ever since that, I only did a couple of charity shows where all the proceeds goes for, the helping others. So with some of these shows, we built some water wells in India. We created some eco toilet system and water system in Mexico. And I also donated to the children hospital in Canada.
Lovely, lovely.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
So we are a moment away from the end. So I'm going to ask you, Attila, if you'd be so kind to just hold on with us for a second. I don't want you to go away just yet because we've got to give you the send-off. And that's usually how we end the program. So before we give you the great send-off, I just need to make a very quick announcement. And that is just to let everybody know that Attila's program and Sherry's as well, by the way, are both on Thursday before the weekend of the conference. So if you haven't made your airline reservations or your hotel reservations yet, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you extend the dates to include Thursday in your schedule so that you can take advantage of these wonderful and exciting programs that we're telling you about here. And I also want to let you know that next week, at same time, same bat channel, we will be talking on St. Patrick's Day, no less, to Daniel Cleary. Perfect day to be talking to Dan Cleary. His topic is targeting pain. And we're also going to be talking to some lady. It's about the reminding system for positive. Karen, who is that going to be?
Well, I think I'll just step in and handle that. If that would be okay with you, I think I'll do the reminding system since that's my system, actually.
Oh, great. So Karen is actually going to be a guest on our program next week, and that's going to be lovely as well. The replay will be posted tomorrow about noon on the Mind Matters forum. It will be posted on Virtual Chapter on Facebook. It will also be posted on IACT and IMDHA's website as well. Under conference, if you go down there, it'll show teleconferences. I hope maybe they've renamed it video conferences now. But there's a link for it right on their website. There's also the Virtual Chapter has a YouTube channel, and you can find all of the replays there as well. So there are all sorts of ways that you can get to see this all over again. So now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that magical, mystical time. Once again, I'm about ready to open up all the microphones so that we can, in one great wave of loving sound, we can send Attila off back to the jungle and thank him for being here tonight. We really appreciate it, and everybody say good night.
Thank you, Attila. Nice chatting with you.
Thank you very much, and good night, guys. Thank you for listening.
We
Next
appreciate
week, bring your own beverages.
You got it.